Well, hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You found the dark oak.
And today I am going to tell you all about the tragic disappearance of 12-year-old Sherry Lynn Marler.
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month through our charity, the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of earnings from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. This month, it is Futures Without Violence. To find out more information, head to our website, thedarkoak.com, our Instagram account, The Dark Oak Podcast, or stay to the end of the episode and we'll give you all the details.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And let me start off this episode by saying thank you to all of our listeners who have sent your prayers and good thoughts and well wishes my way. As Stephanie announced in the last couple of episodes, I lost my sweet mom to ovarian cancer 2 weeks ago today, actually, as of the day we're recording this episode. So obviously my emotions are still very close to the surface, as is to be expected. So I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but we will be honoring my mom through our Branch of Hope Foundation. And I'll share a little more about her journey and her contributions to this podcast in the future. But for the sake of getting through this episode, let's not do that today. But I do want to tell you that every single message of condolence, every comment letting me know that you are keeping me and my family in your thoughts and prayers has really meant so very much during what has absolutely been the darkest time of my life. And I would ask that you keep those prayers and good thoughts coming my way. We just had her funeral service just a few days ago, and we're in the process of planning a second service in her hometown in Kentucky. So I'm still very much in the middle of all of this, and I just appreciate those good thoughts and well wishes and your patience too, as I try to find a new normal. And while we are on the subject of thank yous, I want to publicly acknowledge all of the work that Stephanie has done in the last few weeks here at the Dark Oak. And I've, of course, shared this with her privately, but I wanted to make sure that all of our listeners know that pretty much everything that has happened here at the Dark Oak during the last 30 days or so has been entirely because Stephanie made it happen. When we decided to celebrate our 100th episode by putting out 2 episodes a week for all of April and May, we of course had no way of knowing it was going to coincide with my mom's final weeks. So Stephanie has been doing all of the work we normally do, which is already a lot, but then she's been putting out a second episode each week for all of April. As Bart mentioned, I think it was 2 episodes ago, everything that happens here at the Dark Oak is Stephanie and I. We are the team. We do it all. So with me being out, everything has fallen on Stephanie, and she has just been working so hard to produce everything, all of this content that you've been able to enjoy, and she's absolutely kept us afloat. And I just want to publicly say thank you, thank you, thank you, Stephanie, for everything you have done. You have been absolutely amazing. And thank you, Bart, for stepping in during my absence. I have really enjoyed listening to the episodes with the two of you. He has been an awesome co-host, Stephanie. He's so good.
I'm a little teary right now from your sweet, sweet words, which you did not need to say, because even months ago when we knew your mom's journey might end up in this place, you had a moment where you said, I can't put it on you. And I just said, we got this. We've got this, Cynthia. We can do this. We went over the mountain and we've come out of the other side. And I, too, feel so grateful for our listeners, seeing every comment that they left for you. I'm grateful that you've had this time to really be with your family, to not have any regrets about being there with them.
Me too. Without a miracle, we knew this was probably where things were going to end up. But it did still happen quite fast, faster than we expected. And I was able to spend an entire month at my parents' house. They're local to me, but I literally moved in despite it only being a half-hour drive from my house. So I could be there every waking moment. My sister did the same thing. And I'm so grateful for that time that I just got to spend with her and my family in the weeks since she has left us. All I can say is thank you to everybody. And definitely Bart. I know true crime and mysteries probably isn't what he would consider his forte, but if he had his own podcast, I would absolutely be a listener. I think he's great. So thank you so much, Bart. And then, of course, on a personal level, Stephanie and Bart and their family has really been here for me, just as a friend. That probably goes without saying, that's obvious, but they've been there for me during my darkest moments. Bart even got to witness a complete emotional breakdown, which if it had been Stephanie, that's old hat. We break down in front of each other all the time. But this particular day, it was Bart who got to see that. And he handled it like a champ.
As a matter of fact, I didn't even know it happened. Bart came home and said, yeah, I think Cynthia's struggling today. And then Cynthia sent me several frantic text messages and a phone call saying, oh my gosh, I think I just traumatized your husband. and I went to him, I said, did something happen? He's like, well, she's pretty upset. But it was just like no big deal. It was like, yeah, she's going through some things, but who isn't? So yeah, he really is a gem. We had a really great time together, and Bart and I, we live very busy lives and we have a lot going on. So this was actually kind of a fun thing that we got to do together. So in no way would I consider this a chore.
And I've enjoyed being a listener the last couple of weeks.
Is it weird?
It was a little weird, but it was enjoyable. It was like, oh, I'm just going to listen to the Dark Oak, and I have no idea what's going to be said. I don't know this story, so it was fun.
Right.
It was fun.
Oh,
but
well, good.
I'm glad to be back.
Yes, glad to have you back.
Well, as I mentioned today, I'm going to tell you about the really tragic disappearance of 12-year-old Sherry Lynn Marler. And this is one I've been wanting to present here at the Dark Oak for a while, so I'm really excited to present her story. This is a little girl who went missing, and I think it's really important that we bring as much attention to these cases as we can. On the morning of June 6, 1984, 12-year-old Sherry Lynn Marler woke up after spending the night on her living room sofa. She'd camped out in the living room the night before because her stepfather, Raymond, had an aunt visiting the family's 400-acre farm in Greenville, Alabama. So Sherry kindly offered her own bed to the guest.
Okay, that sounds a bit like a dream.
Okay, so as I was writing this, I was like, I've never been to Greenville, Alabama, but I don't know, a 400-acre farm in the South? I mean, it sounds heavenly, doesn't it?
Well, I know one of your personalities has to really enjoy that. And my actual person really enjoys that. I mean, what do you call it? They're not personalities. I don't want to give people the wrong impression that you have split personalities, but
well,
you do have these.
The jury's out.
We're not going to talk publicly about that.
Right.
But you do have these interests that, again, you've said you've never really would do. We need to come up with a name for that. Maybe a listener has a name for that. What do you call them?
I call them my fantasy selves. Fantasy. Okay. So I have several. There's one where I'm a Broadway star, very famous performer. That's one fantasy life. One, I live on a farm, very much like we're describing here. One of them, I'm an avid stunt sport person. So like a rock climber and a whitewater rafter, and none of which.
I think in the Bloody Benders, you actually lived back in the Wild Wild West.
Oh yes, I was a cowgirl.
Yeah, a cowgirl as well. Yeah.
And these are all lives that I would love to live that are just not the one I'm actually living. So I just live vicariously through my own fantasies, I guess.
Yeah, but I feel like fantasy Cynthia would be really into a 400-acre farm in Greenville, Alabama.
Oh, for sure. Sure. And like you alluded to, real life Stephanie would be very much into this.
I don't care about rock climbing. I do care about owning a farm.
I know you do. We'll go in together. We'll do it together. We'll just have a compound.
Oh, I love it.
We'll plant a giant oak tree in the middle, and it will literally be the Dark Oak.
I love that so much.
All right. So let it be written. So let it be done. Is that how that
Oh, I like that. Look at prophesying. I love that.
Hey, it's a new Cynthia. Like, you know,
Who is this Cynthia?
the worst of the worst has happened.
She's
We
going to
have
start
no
speaking
idea
in,
what's going to come out of this woman now.
she's speaking in Proverbs, guys. Be concerned.
Well, Greenville really was a precious little place. It's a pretty small rural town with a population of about 9,000 back in 1984. And it's about 40 miles south of Montgomery, Alabama. And in the 80s, Greenville was considered a very safe place to live. It was the kind of place where residents may not even lock their door, especially back in the early 80s.
Sure.
Sherry's mom, Betty, worked at the local Waffle House as a waitress, and her shift that morning started at 7 a.m. And knowing that Sherry was asleep on the sofa, Betty went out of her way to be extra quiet as she left the house so as not to wake her sleeping daughter in the living room.
Oh, sounds like a very kind family.
Very kind, but knowing that, spoiler alert, that's the last time she ever saw Sherry, I'm sure there's probably some regret too. Like, oh, what if I mean, we can't do that to ourselves. She was doing the best she could in that moment, but I'm sure it's probably sad for her now thinking that, oh, maybe I should have woke her up.
Yeah, kind of segueing off of the David Sneddon case that we finished, I didn't include this quote in the episode because we just concluded by talking about how we can help David. But I saw an interview with Kathleen Sneddon, David's mom, and she said she remembers staying up late into the night before David left to go to China because he was going to be in China for several months. She said she remembers them just staying up and chatting. But that next morning, everything was kind of chaos, right? Making sure to have everything to get on the plane. She was like, it was just hustle and bustle. And then he was in the car and he left. She said, and I can't remember if I told him that I loved him that morning. And she said, I just have to believe that I did. I remember it just stuck with me so much because we've all had that day, right? Where you have all these plans of everything you're going to say or everything you're going to do. And then it just gets wild and you don't even think about it. You don't think it's going to be the last time you see your person.
Right.
And then it is. I just remember that really sticking with me. So I imagine Sherry's mom may have a little of that too. What could I have said? What should I have said?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are sad thoughts. Really sad.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of hours went by that morning, and then as Raymond was backing his red pickup truck out of the driveway to go on a trip into town, he was interrupted by the sight of Sherry running out of the house barefoot with her shoes in her hands. And when Raymond asked, "Hey, Sherry, where are you going?" she said, "With you." How cute is that?
So cute.
So Sherry and Raymond had this really great relationship, and Sherry would hang out with him anytime she could, and she especially loved taking trips into town.
I love into town. I just love that you could say into town. Is that what you were going to say?
Here's the thing. Where Stephanie and I live, we live in a more rural area of Central Florida, but even where we are, I'm half a mile from my downtown of my little place. But I did get a taste of this whole into town thing back when I was a kid. As I mentioned, my mom is from a small town in Kentucky, and I spent a summer there when I was Sherry's age. So when I was 12 years old, I spent a whole summer in Kentucky, and I stayed on my aunt and uncle's little homestead, and we would take trips into town. And it really was like a little treat. It was like a whole thing. Like, okay, we're going to leave the farm and we're going to go into town. And being from the Orlando area, that's not something we were used to, but I can kind of put myself in Sherry's shoes.
Yeah, it kind of takes you back to even like the dime stores, right?
Yes.
Like you go get your penny candies and things like that. It's just very nostalgic.
It is. It's just sweet. Sherry's nickname was Little Farmer because she loved everything about farming and being outside. So her favorite part of going to town was going to the feed store and the tractor shop. And that made me laugh because it made me think of you, Stephanie, because I'm pretty sure you've told me before that your favorite store is like the farm store.
Tractor Supply Company is, it's my happy place. Now I am forbidden to go there during the spring and early summer months because they have chick days, which is the only time they actually sell livestock. So they sell chickens. I can hear those little peepers because they're always in the back of the store, but I can hear them from the front calling my name. Stephanie, Stephanie. It's even worse if my kids are there because they were like, you never know, some awful people might buy these chicks. And they pull on every heartstring. They are smart little dudes. It has got me a few times. And then I have to come home and explain to Barton why my bag from Tractor Supply is chirping. I told myself I cannot go in without supervision, really, is where we are.
Well, true life story. A couple weeks ago, my sister and I ran into Tractor Supply to grab something, and we went to look to see if there were chicks, just to look at them. I do not have chickens, but literally walking in, my thought was, what am I going to do if there's a chick there that either is crossbeak, and a crossbeak chick requires special feeding, or one chick that just doesn't look healthy or is just especially lonely? What am I going to do? I will be compelled to buy this chick. And then I was like, I guess I'll just take it to Stephanie. Literally, that was my thought. And then I was like, oh, Stephanie would kill me. But I literally was like, if there's a lone chick that needs a home, I cannot leave it, but I also cannot keep it. So I'm sneaking on to Stephanie's little property and dropping a chick off.
Well, here's how they mess with you. You have to buy a minimum of 4.
Oh, no.
You have to have a minimum of 4 chicks, which actually does make sense for a lot of ways.
Sure.
Chickens need friends. Like, you really don't want to have a single chicken. They're a flock. So that's where they get you, because you got to get at least 4. So now what do you do with the chicks? But I've gone through this. I've done it. I would take it.
I know you would.
One disabled chick and it's 3 friends.
Well, you've been warned that is my thought process when I go to buy cat litter.
Well, now you are also banned from Tractor Supply during chick days.
Hey,
there we go.
Together, and then we're in a whole heap of trouble.
And take our kids.
There you go. There you go. Well, on this particular morning, Raymond's first stop in town was the First National Bank, where he needed to go inside to sign some paperwork. So he and Sherry got to the bank around 9:30 in the morning. And as he got out of the truck to head inside, Sherry told him that she was thirsty. So he gave her a $1 bill and told her to go get a soda at the Chevron gas station directly across the street from the bank. And then he told her to meet him back at the truck in 15 minutes. Local townspeople would later say that they saw Sherry walking across the parking lot on her way to the gas station. Right on schedule, about 15 minutes later, Raymond finished up at the bank. But when he got to his truck, he was surprised to see that Sherry was not there waiting for him. And I can, as a mother, play this scene out in my head. I'm sure at first Raymond was a little annoyed that Sherry wasn't back at the truck when he told her to be. But as time went on and he kept waiting for her, and 15 turned to 20, which turned to 25 minutes, and Sherry still never showed up, the annoyance turned to panic.
Well, and it's all the stages too, because it's the annoyance, and then it turns into, don't worry. Worrying is silly. They're not disappeared. You have that moment of like, wait, that doesn't happen to me. We're okay. We're in this small little town. Everything's all right. Like trying to talk yourself down.
Yeah.
But then you finally have to just let it take over. Like, okay, no, I need to try to find help, but not panic. Right. And then it just evolves eventually into panic.
Sure.
It's like the stages of not knowing where your child is.
Right. And to that point, while trying to stay level-headed, Raymond first thought, let me call Betty at the Waffle House and see if Sherry maybe stopped by to say hi to her mom, grab a bite to eat. And he knew this would have been out of character for Sherry to just totally disregard the plan, the time to meet back at the truck. But he said, let me just check there. Let me check there first. But unfortunately, Betty told Raymond the last time she'd seen Sherry was that morning when she left the house and Sherry was still asleep on the sofa. So next, Raymond checked all of the places he could think of where Sherry might be. So the gas station, the feed store, the tractor shop. But there was no sign of her anywhere. And other than the witnesses who saw her crossing the parking lot heading towards the gas station, at this point, nearly an hour earlier, no one remembered seeing Sherry. So at 11:46 a.m., Raymond reported his stepdaughter missing. Now, this is one of those cases where authorities acted quickly. A huge search was organized and began immediately with volunteers lined up to search the city and the surrounding areas on foot, in addition to there being an aerial search. But even with all of that, there was no sign of Sherry, It seemed she had just simply vanished.
So wild, especially when you have this idea of a small town. Bad things don't happen here. Everybody feels comfortable. It just must have felt unfathomable.
I cannot even try to put myself in that headspace of what that must have felt like. I just can't. Over the next days and weeks, missing persons posters were hung all across Greenville and several neighboring towns in an effort to get information from anyone who may have seen Sherry. And the posters had all of the pertinent information. They described Sherry as a Caucasian female with brown hair and brown eyes. She was 5'4" and weighed between 100 and 120 pounds. She had a 2-inch scar on her abdomen and a 1-inch scar on her back near her shoulder. She was last seen wearing a long-sleeved red plaid flannel shirt, light-colored jeans, gray tennis shoes with Velcro fastenings, and a watch with a black band. She had a mixture of baby and permanent teeth at the time of her disappearance, with fillings in 2 teeth. Now, authorities had to look at all of the possibilities. And at first, they wondered if perhaps Sherry had ran away. But as time went on, that seemed like a more and more unlikely scenario. By all accounts, Sherry was a very happy and content child. There didn't appear to be any significant issues at home. Sherry was described as easygoing. She loved her life on the farm. And as I already mentioned, she even enjoyed all the chores that went along with farm life. In addition to just being a happy kid, she'd been looking forward to watching her favorite TV show and visiting her grandmother on the very day that she disappeared. So running away just didn't seem to be the most obvious fit. If she had ran away, she didn't take anything with her other than the clothing that she was wearing, and she's made no attempt to contact her family in the more than 40 years since she disappeared.
I just don't feel like that's a good fit.
No. Me neither, and neither did the authorities. So unfortunately, that led investigators to believe it was a much more likely scenario that Sherry had been abducted and or killed.
Which I hate.
It's like, do I want my kid to have run away? No, but at least there's the hope that they're okay and living life out there. Like, this is so much worse.
For sure. And to not know, it's hard for me to even get these words out, but what would someone want with my 12-year-old daughter?
Ugh.
Well, a lot of things and none of them are good.
Right. And we've talked before about how the unknown of a missing loved one is probably worse than even knowing that they are deceased, just because of all of those questions. Are they hurt? Are they okay? Are they looking for me? Are they scared? All this stuff. I don't know how these families and loved ones of people who go missing, I honestly don't know how they get through it. I really don't. I don't know how you would ever have a moment of peace ever again. I really don't.
I don't know that they do in some situations. I don't know that they do, but I think you do the best you can. You and I spoke briefly before this episode, not like we don't speak every day, but
right.
Just before this episode, about how you find things to keep you going. I know for many people, it's their other children or their spouse or someone in the neighborhood. It's someone that needs you.
Right.
And you just focus on that until the heaviest of it is relieved.
Right.
And then you find your new normal, like you are in many ways. But I think the not knowing, the way your imagination can go wild, I think that would be, a fate almost worse than death. If I would say that, I just think that would be almost unbearable.
I agree wholeheartedly. Well, given this scenario, obviously Raymond was the first person to be questioned by police. And during all of his interactions with authorities, he was very cooperative. He answered all of their questions until he was asked to take a polygraph. And that request, he refused.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so it is interesting, but Stephanie, you and I have talked about this before. And I remember having a conversation where we both agree that even though we know they are unreliable, and it's almost never in a person's best interest to take a polygraph, even if they're innocent, And I'm pretty sure, Stephanie, that you said you don't even think you would have taken one, even if you were innocent. But despite your personal stance and knowing that not taking a polygraph is probably the wisest choice, we have both said we still find it suspicious when other people refuse them.
100%. I myself would never take one, but I will judge anyone else who does not.
And I am the opposite. I'm like, if I have nothing to hide, I will take one. But I also know that I know better. I should know better. It would not be in my best interest to take one at all. They do you no good. So I definitely judge people who don't.
Say you are innocent. I mean, if you're guilty, you deserve to be found out and guilty. But let's assume that you're innocent. Say there's a mistake in the reading and something pings as you being deceptive. Well, basically that just means you're really nervous. Maybe you're just really nervous about the polygraph. Right. So it pings as being deceptive. Now they're like, oh, we got her. We got her. But say nothing's found. Say it comes out that you passed the polygraph test. Well, you're still guilty in the court of public opinion because the police are never going to release that you passed. Right. They're going to say, well, they're faulty. Right. So no good can really come of it. I know they're a tool that we use. And again, I absolutely hang my hat on polygraph results, but also I would never take one. So it makes no sense. You know, we don't always have to make sense, and that doesn't make sense.
We're human. We're allowed to have double standards. We're human.
I'm at least throwing like a little side eye, but in this situation, I just don't feel like he would have had anything to do with it.
No, I don't either. But as you can imagine, the fact that he refused the polygraph did upset a lot of people. And some began to wonder if maybe Raymond did have something to hide.
Oh, but you invite a lot of judgment when you don't do the polygraph, for sure.
You do. But despite the rumors that began to swirl from local townspeople and the fact that he was the last person with her, Raymond has never been a suspect in Sherry's disappearance. And Sherry's mother, Betty, confirms that there is no doubt in her mind that Raymond was nothing but a loving stepfather, and she is absolutely positive that her husband did not harm Sherry. Now, sadly, Raymond passed away in 2003, but according to Betty, he never got over the loss of Sherry. It has always haunted him that he was the one responsible for her when she went missing.
Yeah, that's a heavy cross to bear.
That would be really rough. Betty said that as Raymond lay dying in his hospital bed, he told her, quote, "Betty, I wish I could go get Sherry and bring her home to you, but I can't because I don't know where she is." End quote.
Oh my gosh. He really did. He felt that in his soul, Cynthia.
Right. I mean, decades later, he's literally dying and saying, I wish I could and I can't. Yeah, just horrific. Just horrific. Betty thinks Sherry somehow caught the attention of the wrong person that morning. She pointed out that in 1984, vending machines did not give change, but Raymond had given Sherry a dollar bill. So what if Sherry approached someone at the gas station to ask for change, and that person took the opportunity to take Sherry? So when I read that Raymond said, "Hey, run across the street, get yourself a soda," I just assumed she went into the store and purchased one from the cashier. I do remember vending machines, even cigarette vending machines and things like that being much more of a thing in the 80s. So maybe that's how she would have bought the soda. Maybe the gas station just had a vending machine. In which case, I can see someone saying, "Hey, can I get change for this dollar?" And if she just happened across the wrong person, maybe that made her a target.
Yeah, I could see that. That's great that you clarified that, because in my mind as well, I was thinking of her just running into a general store and grabbing a soda. Right. So the fact that there might have been a vending machine involved, I really hadn't thought about that. But yeah, I mean, I suppose that would have presented an interaction with another adult or someone who would have then been very aware of Sherry.
Right. And given the fact that her mother suggested the vending machine, made me think, okay, she's from the area. She knows the store. It's not what we are envisioning now in 2025.
Yeah, and she knows her daughter. So say there were special drinks in this one vending machine that Sherry really liked.
Right. And Greenville does sit next to a major highway. So if someone had grabbed her, they absolutely could have gotten out of town fast, which to me actually seems like a very likely scenario because it is a small town. So where is she? She just disappeared. Maybe
Yeah,
she's not there anymore.
it could be on either side. So either it's a local who grabbed Sherry and got on that highway, or it was somebody passing through
Right.
who stopped to get fuel, stop at the bank, grab a drink, whatever it was. And if that's the case, it's not even someone from the area.
Right. Now, I guess if this is a really rural area with a lot of different farms, I guess a local could have grabbed her and taken them back to their property.
Oh, sure.
So
Sure.
that's, a terrifying possibility as well. I just do find it interesting that here's this small town. People saw her walk across the street and then she just disappeared and nobody saw anything. That just seems
Unnerving.
yeah. Yeah. It just terrifying.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, there really isn't a lot of confirmed information available on this case. This is one, like I said, I've wanted to cover for a while because I feel like Sherry and her family need our attention. But when a case like this goes cold, sometimes there just isn't a lot of information out there to share. There have been 3 unconfirmed sightings of Sherry by 3 different people in the years she vanished. And I do find it compelling that all of these sightings placed Sherry with a man who looked to be around 50 years old and about 5 feet 8 inches tall. This man was described as having had a husky build and a weathered complexion with crow's feet around his eyes. And one of these witnesses said that they heard the girl who could potentially have been Sherry call the man BJ.
Interesting.
Right. In all 3 of these sightings, the witnesses reported the girl appearing to be very upset, disheveled, and dazed. One of the sightings was in Georgia, another in New Orleans, and the third was in St. Stephen. And in 2018, the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office revealed that Sherry had stayed with her stepsister and her stepsister's husband in the St. Stephen area back in the summer of 1983. So she does have a connection to that location.
Oh, that's weird.
But that's really all we know for sure about Sherry Lynn Marler's disappearance. However, I cannot talk about Sherry Lynn Marler without talking about the conspiracy theory that is often associated with her case. So I'm going to preface this right now. I'm about to present you with a very interesting, slightly convoluted theory. I would call it a conspiracy theory. But you really can't do any research on Sherry's case without this theory popping up. So I thought it was fair to present it. But please, please, please understand, none of this has been confirmed. And here at the Dark Oak, we tend to like to stick to facts. But this is just so widely associated with her case that I felt like we couldn't leave it out. And I do think that some of what I'm about to share with you could be a possibility. It's just not substantiated.
Okay.
In my research on this case, I stumbled upon a Facebook page called Sherry Lynn Marler Still Missing. And this page is ran by a woman named Ryan Welch Anderson. Ryan introduces herself as an author originally from Greenville, Alabama, so the same hometown as Sherry. As of Ryan's introductory Facebook post to this page in 2017, she'd written and published 3 fictional crime novels that took place in Alabama. So she's an author. She writes fictional crime based out of Alabama. According to the Facebook page, in 2009, Ryan made the decision to challenge herself to write a nonfiction book about the disappearance of Sherry Lynn Marler because they shared a hometown, so Ryan felt close to the case. Now, I reached out to Ryan and she did respond, but unfortunately we were never able to coordinate like a real telephone conversation. It was just sporadic messaging back and forth. So I wasn't able to get a full interview like I would have wanted, but she has documented all of her findings over the last several years on this Facebook page.
Okay. Interesting. I want to hear what you found.
Okay. According to Ryan, what started off as research for a book has turned into a life-altering mission to find answers. Ryan says she's coordinated a group of volunteers that work with her, and this group has done everything from hiring cadaver dog teams to digging up possible evidence. And when I say digging up evidence, I mean physically taking a shovel to dirt and digging, looking for evidence.
It's almost like an unofficial task force.
Really, it really is. Ryan says over the last decade, she spent approximately $15,000 of her own money in an effort to find the truth about what happened to Sherry, and she believes she's finally found it. In 2019, Ryan posted a very long post to the Facebook page that I'm going to paraphrase for you. According to Ryan, she has extremely credible witnesses who were not willing to come forward publicly. But after years of these witnesses coming forward with tips, Ryan believes Sherry was murdered and dismembered by someone that Sherry knew very well, but Ryan makes it clear this person was not Raymond. After being murdered, Ryan says that Sherry was thrown into a hog pen in Butler County, Alabama. Now, the person Ryan and her witnesses believe killed Sherry is now deceased, and she strongly suspects that there were an additional 1 or 2 people that were present at the time of Sherry's death who were also deceased. So anywhere from 1 to 3 people responsible for Sherry's death, and they've all passed away. Ryan believes Sherry was pregnant at the time that she went missing as the result of being a victim of a multiple family-based incest pedophilia ring.
What?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that.
I feel like I should have been given a heads up about that, Cynthia. I feel like that's something you'd be like, okay, delicate information happening here.
Sorry. Yes, trigger warning.
Cynthia has come in like a wrecking ball. You guys, just buckle in. Buckle in, folks.
Oh, it's true. It's true.
Cynthia said, I make no apologies.
No apologies. No apologies. And I'm going to just go ahead and warn you now. I don't think it gets any more pleasant, this theory that I'm going to share with you.
Well, how could it? You already have a missing 12-year-old who was hacked to pieces, fed to pigs because she was part of a pedophilia incest ring.
And was pregnant at 12.
So I'm not sure what else you could throw in there at this point. I think you've covered all the bases, and this is also awful.
It's awful. It's awful. In the early spring of 2017, Ryan and her team say they began digging a 10.2-acre parcel in the woods that at the time they strongly suspected was the location of this hog farm where they'd heard Sherry was murdered.
Okay.
After a particularly long day of digging, Ryan and her team say they uncovered the entire perimeter of a concrete feeding pen that is believed to have been used for hogs. They also found an old corrugated metal doorway and a pair of children's pants that had large, dark, splotchy stains. She said her team followed protocol and immediately froze the pants, placed them in a cooler, collected all of the team's documentation, and turned it all over to the Butler County Sheriff Department, who assured them it would be sent immediately to the DNA lab in Montgomery for testing. According to Ryan, this quote-unquote evidence was never sent to the lab for testing. Ryan goes on to say that after years of constant emailing and calling and messaging the surviving family members of the person she believes murdered Sherry, she finally received a reply. She says she met with this person and begged for any information that could help in the search for Sherry, specifically any old photos of the hog pen as it was in 1984. Ultimately, this spouse of this person, Ryan believes murdered Sherry, invited Ryan to their home to look through a collection of old photos that had recently been found in storage. And in this collection, allegedly, were multiple photographs, stamp dated on the back, of this hog farm in 1984. At the bottom of the pile, Ryan found a photo that looked like it had been just like folded up a lot, and it appeared that the time and date stamp was destroyed, like crossed out on this photo. And regarding the photo, this is what Ryan says, quote, "I knew exactly what I was looking at, but I am so emotionally tied to this case, I did not want to rely on myself. So I immediately and very strategically sent the photo to 6 people and asked them what it was. I gave them no information, no backstory, no clues, just the photo and the simple question of, what do you see in this photo? Each person is extremely educated and experienced and familiar with forensics. Each person immediately responded with the same answer. It is a severed human head. The whole head, not a decomposed head or a skull, on the ground below a young hog. Eyes and mouth wide open, hair still in place on the head. End quote.
And this is supposed to be Sherry's head?
Supposedly.
Okay, so where is this photo, Cynthia?
We are going to post this photo to all of our socials, especially to our Instagram. It's going to be in the episode extras on our Instagram. Yes. Okay, so Stephanie, you're looking at the photo right now. What, if anything, do you see?
Well, definitely there's a hog.
Right.
Definitely I see the folds in the photo. And definitely I see something that someone could think is a human head.
Okay. So that's not out of the realm of possibility for you.
No. I know this may seem like a weird question considering the bomb you just dropped, but why would somebody take a photo of this? Like, why would somebody take a photo of this and save that photo?
My assumption would be, and I think what Ryan has alluded to is kind of like a trophy. And the fact that the area that's kind of crumpled is like the area of the photo where the thing that looks like a head is. And the fact that the date stamp allegedly, now we can't see the date stamp here on this photo, it's on the back, but allegedly that date stamp is scratched up and just hard to read.
Have you ever seen a photo of that? Just curious. Like, has that ever been released?
I have not. No.
Because again, this is all a theory. This is a conspiracy theory, an unproven conspiracy theory.
Right.
So if we're really trying to look at this through an objective lens, you're going to want to see those things, right?
Well, I think that's my problem with this particular theory is, I'm not saying it's not true. Honestly, it sounds like it could be. But Ryan's unable to release the names of the people who came forward with these tips. She's unable to release the name of the person she believes murdered Sherry. She's unable to provide the receipts, honestly. Now, I believe those items may have been given to law enforcement. But for me, reporting on this case, I don't have any of that information. So though it could be true, I can't really present as fact this theory when I can't even tell you who, what, when, where.
Yeah, this is interestingly kind of uncharted territory for the Dark Oak, because you're right, we're always looking for the fact finding, which is, I think, as a quality podcaster, that's one of the things you should do. This is compelling, though. There's something in the photo, but again, not being able to know where it was taken, who it was taken by, for what purpose, on what date. It's really hard for me to sit here and say, absolutely. I mean, does it look like a head in a photo under a pig? Yeah. But okay. And then what?
Right. It's interesting to me that you say, yeah, that looks like a head, because it could be a head, in my opinion. It could also be a rock, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree.
It would be nothing. I mean, how many times do you turn your lights off at night and the blanket down at the end of the bed looks like something laying? You know what I mean? My son the other day said, Mom, the blanket looks like a scorpion. Oh, and it did. It looked like a scorpion, just the way it was laying. So to me, it could be a head. It could be a rock with just dirt on it that kind of forms the shape of a face. It's not, for sure, in my opinion, definitely a severed head.
Or if Ryan really has it out for someone, but again, she's never released their names, so how out for someone could you be? But maybe this is a fabricated photo altogether.
Well, and she's a writer, she's an author, and she started off this mission by wanting to write a book about Sherry's case. So my thought was, oh, well, if we make the case sound really exciting, then, that makes for a better book. But to my knowledge, that book has never been released. She's playing the long game if that's what this is.
Yeah.
In that same Facebook post, Ryan went on to say that her team decided they weren't going to do anything with this photo until a cadaver dog team came out and searched the property. So what she did is she took a picture of the photo on the cell phone, but left the original with the owner. So the spouse of the person she believes killed Sherry. Because Ryan's group isn't an official investigating agency, according to her, it took several months to find a dog team that was willing to work with her. According to Ryan, when they eventually got a cadaver dog team to the site, 2 different dogs gave, quote, irrefutable confirmed hits, end quote. And again, according to Ryan, this entire interaction was filmed but it can't be released because of, quote, rules and laws in place, end quote. Now, what I believe she's saying, what I've been able to piece together from both my messages back and forth with her and the information she has released, she's given a lot of this information to authorities, and we'll talk about it a little more in a minute. Authorities haven't really done a whole lot with it. So I think she's just, for litigious reasons or for fear of maybe interfering in the case, she's just trying to stay really tight-lipped. Maybe she's been told, you cannot talk about this. This is an open investigation. I don't really know. I feel like that's the reason why she's not able to give us this information we so desperately want.
Well, it's quite the accusation. I mean, if you're accusing someone of this and they really are innocent, this is way wild.
Right. She did tell me that if I wanted to really cover this story correctly, I better hire an attorney, was her warning to me. So I don't know what that means.
Okay, so is this like a catch-22? I can't release this name because it could get litigious, but at the same time, because I don't release a name, no one believes me.
Well, I don't know, because here's what I do know. Ryan said her team called the Butler County Sheriff Department, who immediately responded to the scene and witnessed one of the dogs alerting. And then Ryan showed then sheriff a copy of the photo, the copy on her phone. And said, look, it looks like a head that was here back in 1984. Here's this photo. And according to Ryan, the sheriff allegedly threatened her with arrest for not bringing the photo to law enforcement's attention sooner. So according to Ryan, law enforcement later told her that they went and got that original photo and sent it to the FBI to be analyzed, but Ryan's been unable to confirm that the FBI ever received the photo. If everything I'm reading is accurate, it appears to me Ryan has provided names, dates, all of the pertinent information to law enforcement. But according to Ryan, it seems like law enforcement isn't really following up or doing anything with it. That's according to Ryan.
I want to know, is the person she is accusing of doing these things in law enforcement?
That I don't know.
It's like conspiracy theory number 2 now, of not only is this some kind of pedophile incest ring with murder, with like a murder cover-up, but now you also have the police covering it up. That's like another conspiracy theory. So, this is tough, Cynthia.
It is tough. And Stephanie, as I do kind of go down these rabbit holes, I wasn't even going to mention this because it's so, I cannot verify it in any way. But you go over to Reddit, people are talking about this theory. And there was a Reddit user who literally said, my grandfather was her boyfriend at the time. He was 14 years old at the time. And it's his dad that Ryan is accusing of murdering Sherry. And almost kind of confirms Ryan's story and puts a new level of legitimacy to it by saying, yeah, that was my grandfather. And it was his dad. So his great-grandfather, his or her great-grandfather. So I don't know. We have no way of knowing if this is accurate. But what if 12-year-old Sherry was dating a 14-year-old boy and got pregnant by her boyfriend? And then his dad said, no, we're not having this. We're going to take care of this. Who knows? But I did think that was interesting that another user came in and kind of
almost validated.
Right.
She was, at least made what she was saying more concrete. Because at this point, it's everything's unknown. But this is saying, no, it's a real person. And they had a real tie to Sherry.
Right. And that's saying that this Reddit user is not just some person who's just saying, oh, yeah, my grandfather, there's no way of knowing that this person's even telling the truth.
It's true. I don't know how readily people interject that their family members are suspected or accused of such a heinous crime, but I suppose you never know. People are kind of weird sometimes, so.
Well, and if what this Reddit user said was true, they go on to say that their grandfather was just a horrible person and the level of trauma went through generations and it was just a really bad scenario, if that's true.
Yeah, like you said, it adds some validity, for sure.
It did. And Stephanie, that's really where this case lands. According to Ryan, she believes she knows what happened to Sherry. She knows who killed her. She knows why. And according to Ryan, it's law enforcement who's dropped the ball. I don't know. I think some of this could be possible, but again, you got to prove it.
What was her last Facebook post? If anybody wants to go check it out to see the photos and what Ryan has posted specifically, it's Sherry Lynn Marler Still Missing.
Still Missing.
On
and
Facebook.
Her last post was January 25th of this year, 2025. And it says, quote, "There has recently been a sudden resurgence of interest in the disappearance of Sherry Marler. I'm always grateful for any interest and constant, never-ending hope that some courageous person will come forward with new information. I've been dedicated to Sherry for many years now, and I've realized a pattern. Her case never fails to receive new attention this time of year every year." And she goes on to say, you can go back and look and see that every year around January, the case gets new information. I don't know why that would be. She disappeared in June, so it's not an anniversary or anything. But there's been no updates. I did go through the page again last night just to see if there's anything recently changed. And she said in one of her more recent posts, which again, don't come out super often, but that there's been no update.
Weird. I want to post this picture and see what people think. So you're not saying you know what it is for sure. You said I was being generous by saying it absolutely looks like a head or a face. Are you leaning more towards rock? And I will say, this picture, it is littered with debris. Looks like fallen timbers. There are rocks. It looks like old construction material,
right?
Leaves, dirt. You're right. It's not for sure. This is a head. It could be just a piece of debris.
I feel like I kind of leaned on the conservative side just in general. So my gut tells me it's more than likely a rock as opposed to a severed head. But if law enforcement came in and said, no, that's absolutely a photo of a severed head, I would say, oh, okay. It certainly could be. That's just not
someone viewing it with more than just the naked eye, I
right.
think. Even verifying it's a historic photo. Because what if Ryan just made it up? What if she took this picture and put a sepia filter over top of it and said, well, okay, it's a historic photo and look, there's a head in it.
Well, and to that point, if you go to that Sherry Lynn Marler Still Missing page, you will see this photo. You will see the original, what appears to be the original. And it does look like an original photo from the 80s because it looks like it's been printed. You could fake that, but what appears to potentially be a printed photo. But then there are several enhancements where someone has come in and changed the settings and the lighting and the sharpness and the shadows and all of that. And someone has taken a rendering of Sherry's face and lined it up with the photo. And it is pretty compelling. I could absolutely believe that it was a head. But what are the chances that we just happen to have a photo of her severed head from 40-something years ago that you just happen to find in the bottom of this cheese wheel box? A lot of things would have to come together for that to be what this actually is. And I don't know. To me, that is kind of what takes me out of it.
I think that's fair. It'll be interesting to see over the years if anything evolves or if the book ever gets written.
Right. I will say on June 6, 2010, which was the 26th anniversary of Sherry's disappearance, Sherry's mom, Betty, opened Enterprise Restaurant. And the sign on the street said the restaurant was, quote, opened in honor and memory of Sherry Lynn Marler, end quote. Betty said, we want to honor her memory, but we also want to heighten people's awareness of the reality of children missing every day in this country. Betty joined Team Hope. Hope stands for Help Offering Parents Empowerment, and that's a program created by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Their goal is to help train the family members of missing and sexually exploited children so that they can help others in the same situation. Betty said, at Team Hope, we're members of a club no one wants to belong to. I volunteer in the hope that no one else will ever have to go through what our family has been through. After Raymond's death, Betty and Ralph Marler, Sherry's biological father, reconnected and were engaged at the time of his passing in 2013. Over the years, Sherry's family has continued to search for answers. Betty has remained vocal about the case, appearing in media interviews and keeping her daughter's case alive in the public eye. Despite the time that has passed, the case of Sherry Lynn Marler remains open, and she is still listed as a missing person. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has released age-progressed images showing what Sherry might look like as an adult, hoping to generate new leads. If you have any information about Sherry's disappearance, please contact the Greenville Police Department at 334-382-7461 or the Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. So that's the case of Sherry Lynn Marler.
Well, it's a weird one and so sad. My original thought was, I suppose having a conspiracy theory is better than having nothing. But then I remembered what the conspiracy theory was, and I said, no, that's horrible. And now I'm just stuck. This is a very sad case.
For me, I think no matter what happened, we know something bad happened. We know that she didn't come home to her family. We know that her stepfather lived the rest of his life feeling somewhat responsible and missing her. We know that her mother has spent the rest of her life searching for her and being vocal. So whether she was kidnapped, abducted, murdered there in her own town, either way, I don't think we have a happy ending for Sherry. And it's just tragic because we are talking about a 12-year-old happy little girl.
Okay. Well, dang. All right. Well, I am going to give one more shout out to Futures Without Violence, which is our Branch of Hope nonprofit organization for the month. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about them. So Futures Without Violence, just like the name says, is committed to ending domestic violence. And really, the more I've learned about this program, committed to trying to eliminate violence in all capacity. They work on gun violence. They work on domestic violence, specifically when it comes to children. Today, I want to focus a little bit on their initiative for older adults. According to the Futures Without Violence website, the World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 6 older people will have experienced some form of violence. And they said age stereotypes play a key role in perpetuating abuse of older adults, as well as hindering their access to appropriate care and support. And they feel like a lot of legislation and policies don't protect the elderly like they should. So they've created a group called STAGES, which is strategies to advance greater elder safety. And what they do is go into communities and speak to legislative branches to increase the protection of elderly people. And I think that is really, really cool.
I love how they have their hands in everything. Children, adults, young adults, males, all communities. They've got specialized areas where they just try to help each community. I love that.
So if you are our Patreon member, know that a portion of your subscription goes to these nonprofit organizations. And this month it's Futures Without Violence. If you would like more information about Futures Without Violence, you can find information on our webpage, thedarkoak.com, our Instagram account, The Dark Oak Podcast, or you can go directly to Futures, which is futureswithoutviolence.org. So at this point, we really need you to come back next week because it is what, Cynthia?
It's our 100th episode.
Our 100th episode. Also, at the time this episode is being released, we should know the winners of our giveaway as well. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to go live on our Facebook page for that. So if you haven't seen it, go check out the Facebook page because it'll be on there. Maybe you will hear your name. We appreciate everyone reaching out to us, giving us so much support, and then also signing up for the giveaway. I've loved seeing all the comments. I've loved getting so many messages. We just feel like the luckiest girls, truly. Even with all tragedy and hardships we've been through, we feel really privileged to be part of this podcast and be part of this community with our Shiver Seekers.
We do. Absolutely do. So excited for what the next 100 holds.
I cannot believe it. Okay, should I tell them what we're covering or is it a surprise?
Okay, your call. Your call. Is she feeling like a tease?
You know what? I think you're just gonna come back.
Okay.
I think you're just gonna have to come back from 100. I'm not even gonna tell you, but it's gonna be a good one.
You're
gonna like it.
It's a big one.
Yeah, it's a biggie. It's gonna be a 2-parter. I will tell you that. So it's gonna be episode 100 and 101, which is wild.
Wild.
Yeah. All right, Shiver Seekers. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed this bonus episode.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.